So the first activity we talk about data modeling. I assume we have got multiple data sources. We're working in a scenario where you have at least one data source, the relation database, one multidimensional database, and you have one some semi-structured data source. Okay. I also assume on top of multidimensional database, you have got enterprise data warehousing layer. This layer is already exists. This is a prerequisite which is already exists. Now on top of enterprise data warehouse, we have to build a semantic layer we call over here framework manager, and then framework manager, and on top of framework manager we are going to have a reporting layer, and your users are going to communicate to the reporting layer. So in the beginning of our training program we focus onto these areas, and we talk about what data model job role is. We are going to design a data model. Therefore my two category of users, my business analyst, those for business analysts, we design a reporting solution where they can drag and drop and create report on their own. On the other hand, I have report developers. They can design pixel perfect, uh, advanced reports and dashboard. So our whole today's session and next 12 session will completely focus about various data modeling issues. How do we address in Cognos, and what are different techniques, how Cognos understand this process. So we start with some of the keywords. We understand the whole life cycle in the beginning, and then we talk about where does framework manager fit into picture. We see complete enterprise data warehousing architecture, and we see where does your Cognos whole suite of product of Cognos, where do they fit into picture. So this is a typical life cycle of reporting. The first step, naturally, you need to retrieve the requirement. Requirement could be in multiple format. It could be, if you are so lucky, you already get a requirement in terms of well-defined document like your BRD, business requirement documentation. You have a detailed technical documentation, but the one which we need in the beginning is called a metadata dictionary. This is a Bible for us in the beginning, a metadata dictionary. A metadata dictionary talk about each table, column, join, business and technical meaning of your metadata, because in a large big enterprise, uh, the collection of the suite of the number of tables are very high. You may have 100 200 tables of different subject areas. You have 50 table for finance, 20 table for procurement, HR. Therefore we supposed to have a documentation. We'll talk about in detail of all this information. So metadata dictionary is the first document we're supposed to refer. So converting requirement into metadata. Metadata will tell you some information about like what table you're supposed to refer, what column you're supposed to refer, and other information. I have a small piece of metadata requirement, give you a little heads up. So although your metadata document in detailed fashion, this is just an example, you have some sort of requirement. You start with some basic requirement. Like you need, one of the user has to find out list of top 10 retailers, retailer name, top 10 retailer based on revenue. So we map the business requirement with what is source of information from where we can pull the data. So this may be this is a subset of my whole data warehouse model, which talk about specifically to retailer, like retailer name, what organization belong to, what is the order method, and couple of table pertaining to talk about retailer. So you have business requirement, you have data model, and then you have a further detail to this. What table you have, what column you have, what hierarchy you have, and further detail. So first capture your metadata. Ideally metadata is given by your data warehousing. The people who manage and handle the data warehouse, they give you metadata in detail. Then on top of metadata, we are going to design our framework manager. In fact, framework manager is a metadata modeling tool, but specific to the report. The metadata which available in your enterprise warehouse is a common and the feed goes to all the all the solution. The feed goes to your reporting, analysis, data mining, and many other sources. So if you consider your enterprise data warehouse, the subset of this, I may cut a slice of it and use framework manager, and where my report will fit on top of that. So enterprise data warehouse is designed for a generic requirement, whereas framework manager is designed specifically for reporting. There may be another feed go for data mining or some predictive analysis, or it could be used planning a budgeting solution. There may be multiple possibilities, but it's a generic solution and the feed go to multiple sources. Once you understand completely and well what metadata you're going to work, we need to pull this into our system. For whole enterprise data warehouse, we pull a small piece of enterprise data warehouse subset of data into our framework manager. Although framework manager is, or any semantic layer, may be designed or could be designed for your enterprise warehouse, it could also be designed for departmental base. Maybe the cost of implementing whole reporting system is very expensive. The organization decided to start with financial reporting, financial analytics. So it could be one enterprise or it could be departmental metadata. And then we talk about this process in detail as we go further. This is a top 3 line item we should know about before designing our metadata. Now there are this is a whole diagram which talk about where does your semantic layer fit into picture. Now if you see is a layer diagram, the first layer talk about internal source system. It could be internal, it could be external. When I say internal could be organization specific. Maybe for a financial department, they started storing their own data. It's very common, it happens. They store their data in the local MS Access database. They use Excel sheet. They use similar kind of sources. When I say internal, it may not have any predefined industry standard, compliance, or something like this. External data source is one which is established by IT team and which follows certain compliance, certain standard. In simple word, we can call about these are tables, relational database tables. They could be Excel sheet, they could be flat file, they could be multidimensional database, it could be ERP, CRM, or some solution from where we need to pull data. So any reporting tool or any source required to pull into your common system. We use a tool called ETL, extract, transform, and load. Yesterday I shared across data warehousing startup kit. You can see the detail about them, but this is a process through which you pull data, disparate sources into a common layer, right? So we have a separate metadata for ETL. You may have a separate metadata for ETL. Okay. The ETL component will populate your centralized warehouse. For now, we understand centralized, your central data warehouse, basically one common place which address all business questions across all the all the department. You have questions for finance, you may address question for procurement or other areas. So one common place where all question would be answered. This is a common place for us to query. Now as a Cognos report developer, your job starts from here, from this point onward. When we start our work, we assume we already have a enterprise data warehousing already established. There are certain situations where your reporting directly sit on top of transactional system. It may also be possible. Okay. Like new generation BI tool focusing on a small scale industry or mid scale industry where they do not have adequate resources and money to establish an enterprise warehouse. They commonly sit on top of transaction system. Maybe you are using some open source CRM or CRM solution. Your reporting can sit directly on top of that. It eventually low down the cost. Next, on top of this, we design business metadata, most important element of your design. See, the traditional reporting, as I always focus, is designed for report developer. I design report and give it to the user. The user has a defined boundaries under which they can use the report. over the period of time, the business intelligence definition has changed. Rather than we create report and hand over to the report developer, other way around, we facilitate our business analyst report. We facilitate our business analyst and business team so that they can connect to my source system and pull the required information. They don't have to wait for us. There are two benefits. We give a high degree of ad hoc analysis. Any question comes up to the user mind, and the lower cost of implementation. They don't need an IT resource. It should be simple. So the bottom line of this implementation is business metadata. Okay, business metadata, I would say, convert your table, your column, your views, your joins, or everything in a way that people can understand this in a simple business terminology and definitions. This is our focus area. The better you design your business metadata, the success of your report these days greatly depends upon how prudently design business metadata. You see, in business metadata, there are multiple subsets. Okay, so we do plenty of things over here. One of these called data aggregation. Data aggregation could be the data available to you is very detailed manner and may not be appropriate for reporting. See, I have two kind of sources over here. For example, in my time dimension or table, we maintain this data. Assume I'm using a transactional system and I have a separate table which talk about time. So the granularity of data is very low. Every minute we are capturing time, right? Whereas this kind of, when you are business analyst, you may not be interested to know about how much sales you are making in every minute. This is more a transactional view. So this view is not something required for any kind of analysis. So we need to summarize them or aggregate. Aggregate, we roll up or consolidate the data for every minute transaction to monthly, weekly, daily, or quarterly. In this example, to make sense, we're aggregating at month. So you see the lowest level of granularity is month, right? So, or could be more summarized data as the lowest level of granularity is quarter. What could be granularity? It also depends upon various compliances. These days the reporting also bound up with compliances. Maybe you are using management reporting. So the way you are creating report, you are the boss. You create the report the way you like. But if you're working in financial domain or similar kind of areas, you are bound with a set of compliance. This is another example of report. Simple, elegant, but everything you see over here, all the calculation, the view, in fact, what appear over here in each, they're all based on certain compliance. There are so many compliance these days. IFRS, 10K, 10Q reporting. So this is another point. When you design any reporting, the first question comes, how do you design your business metadata and how appropriate it is to answer your query. This is our focus area of learning. You have a data aggregation, you have data summarization, you may have further processing engine which can filter your data. Another simple example, as I given you yesterday also, you may require to filter your records. You perform calculation. Maybe you have a filter criteria. Your two needs. Your data warehousing need is to all data, right? So I have a table called TBL prod history. I have data for 20 years. We're managing 20 years of data. But for reporting, I have a different requirement. Reporting is more business intelligence. You don't need to go back 20 years and identify what is your business need. It's all not relevant these days. People want to see recent data, 2 years, 3 years, so that they can do good and predictive analysis. Especially meaningful because the business is so dynamic these days. So I want to maintain, this is my filter criteria, active products. Active products for last 3 years. So I could simple write in terms of query. I would say where product status, I assume I have a column equals to active, and you apply time criteria or date criteria, whatever. The moral of the story, the way data come from enterprise warehouse may further be required to filter based upon the reporting requirement. You may also require to perform calculation, custom calculation, or we call business rule. You have a custom calculation. When you pull metadata from your enterprise warehouse, you may not have any calculation. You may have simple to complex calculation. A simplest calculation, you're calculating your sale tax. Your sale tax to be calculated as 5% of sales. Because sale tax is not calculated in enterprise warehouse, because this is highly depends upon your province. There are multiple factor influence this. So you decided all the calculation, simple or complex, could be calculated on your reporting layer, or could be, if it is common, we can perform in business metadata. So aggregation, calculation, filtering, all we do over here. This is a different reporting tool called different term, but every reporting tool has this. In Cognos we call framework manager, in OBI we call RPD, in SAP we call universe, something like this. Your data, you may also reorder your data in terms of multidimensional database. In case your analysis in your user like to see your data in multidimensional format, or you have a hierarchical analysis, like your business is pretty detailed hierarchy. You have hierarchy like this, and you like to evaluate your sales, expense, allocation. You have a hierarchy: line of business, sub line of business, division, subdivision, and like this, and cost center. This is your hierarchy. Maybe you like to profitability analysis. Okay, profitability analysis for each division. This is my requirement. Which there are so many division I have got, so many line of business. Which line of business contributes a lot? I mean contributes. So I like to see revenue contribution of each line of business, right? So this, we have a hierarchy view, and hierarchy based analysis is the best work when you use a multidimensional database. Your multidimensional database may look like this way. Your traditional database has a tabular view. I show you this one. Typically your data is stored in terms of transactions, right? So maybe you see one row is one transaction. In a generic word, you go to Walmart and you buy something and you come back. That's whole called one transaction. So in a transaction, what information capture, in which country they're located, what product you buy, which date, what was the store name, store detail, what was sales, expenses. All these are different subjects are stitched together, combined together to form one transaction. Your hierarchy is not only a dimension, your hierarchy is your account as well, or common thread of account, or your majors. You have assets. Under asset you got and a short-term asset, and a short-term asset. You in turn have cash on hand. So the moral of the story, your business metadata, it's hierarchical, but in a relational database we do not have any mechanism, we do not have any prudent way to organize your data in hierarchy fashion. Though these days many databases have started coming with provisioning, pre-built functions, methodology to handle the hierarchy data as well. Like Oracle 12c has plenty of function to handle the hierarchy data, but it's primarily handled through a multidimensional database. So people have to further analyze the requirement. Your reporting could be on top of multidimensional database. The beauty over here, as a user, you don't bother about your data come from relational database or multidimensional database. The complexity of all these things are handled in your business metadata. So you can have multi-dimensional database, you can have relational database, or are being handled. And you see in the bottom line, everywhere you have a security implementation. 3 levels of security. Database have its own security. You have enterprise warehouse's own security model. Metadata, you have your security model, and finally you do have security model at your information delivery channel or metadata. So when I say, if you talk about in the IBM Cognos context, this is your framework manager. On top of your framework manager, you have got different tools like Query Studio, Report Studio. You have got offline analysis, active reporting. You can do desktop-based analysis like Cognos Insight Advanced, and all these things. So this is on top of this. We have an information delivery metadata. Common, you can provide mobile computing through which you provide mobile specific report designed for mobiles. You do have web-based reporting. You have offline reporting through which you can mail user all the reports. It is called push and pull. Push, pull, you connect to the system and bring the required information. Push means your system has some intuitive analysis or some scheduling, some mechanism through which you supply information to the user. Maybe very common example, in a business scenario, every month end or month in the beginning of the month, people get a common report. I'm a stakeholder of one line of business, or I'm a manager of line of business. Every month, first day of the month, I get a report about actual sales, target sales, and variance. It comes to my desktop automatically. So this is called information delivery is a reporting which you typically talk about. But you see your reporting sit on top of your business metadata. This is what, that is why our learning order is this. So we talk about business metadata. Business metadata designed through a tool called Framework Manager. Framework Manager is a metadata modeling tool. Why do we need to model it? Why can't we use directly from your exactly same as your come from your data warehousing? Why? There could be multiple reasons. One reason I show you over here. The way data come from enterprise data warehousing may not be meeting my needs. For example, if I focus only on product, see, I have got plenty of product, so many tables which store product data, right? One table talk about product color. These are basically attributes: product size, product color, product lookup, various information, product brand. This is basically transactional model, the transactional, or it is highly normalized. In a highly normalized model, you have detailed information. The data is split across tables. The more you normalize, the easier it is to maintain. But I cannot go back and my user and ask them to write a query even for a report developer. If I go back and say, in order to write the query, you need to refer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 table. It's a pretty difficult. So on top of your all these product table, which stitch them together, combine them, and when user view, he looks to him as if it's a one table or it's a one source. That could be one simple example. So you denormalize a model into the way it looks to the user. That's one simple example. So we call metadata modeling tool that derive the query generation. When I say query generation means from your source, when your user will connect to your report system, reporting layer or presentation layer, information delivery layer, it will connect to my framework manager. And framework manager is smart enough to dynamically, depends upon user request, dynamically query your source system. So it generates a query on the fly. So what does that mean? Suppose let's take here itself. Let's say I need data of country, okay, I need data from product is going to be one table for me. I need data from sales and from country, right? So when you select particular, I select product name, product number, product color, product line, and I choose some sales information and sales. Okay, I choose couple of column. Quantity sold, to product number, what is product margin, and other information. So when I right click and view data, I can navigate data over here, test the data. When I test, your system is smart enough to render the query automatically behind the screen. You see this query? On top of my selection, your framework manager has processed one query. And what could be joined, what could be keys, what is primary key, what is table, all important information it created on its own. This is not we specify. It means framework manager is smart, intelligent. It has its own self-intelligence, which not only connect your data source, but also find the most optimum way to process query. Right? Not only just process the query, but optimized way of processing query. When I say optimized, it means the best way to process your query. It used little sometimes complex SQL query and all. So you see, if you look at carefully over here, this is your product as an alias, which is in turn consists of multiple table. You have created an alias of the whole SQL query. This is a whole query and this is an alias of it. So it identifies the best way to process query, maybe from single source, or it may also be possible to connect multiple sources together. At one time you can connect to multiple sources at one time. Maybe one from your relational database, one from your multidimensional database and all. So what user does? User simple drag and drop the column, whatever he wants from your predefined list. In this example, I took product, revenue, and I choose one more column called branch. The brain behind processing this query is your framework manager. This is user interface. Okay, so I select product and I select province, and I did not specify what should be joined, what should be key, what is column, what calculation, all this information. I drag and drop and I can see the query has been rendered. Now if you see two kind of query, SQL for relational database and MDX for multidimensional database, and some query has rendered. It is going to be a little big. Naturally, when you see your data is coming from multiple sources, these are your sources: product type, product line, product category, product size, right? To the user it looks as if it's a one table, one source. What it looks to the user? The user view, product is a one table or one logical unit, but it consists of multiple table, at least these many, right? Product type, product size, product color, product brand, and all. So user view is one source, but complexities are hidden from the user and it is coming from multiple sources. So that is what one of the important job of your framework manager. You see, we group multiple product table into one source. This is user view, but when I'm querying it, it is coming data from all this table. I've taken a subset of it, but you still see what are these table: product color, product brand, product size, product type, product line. All of them are grouped together to form a one single uniform view to the user. So that's a user view simplified, and that's a query behind the screen which take the data from multiple sources. So it's a modeling in a business presentation of the information in from one or more data sources. When I say business presentation, look at another part of it. Which data comes to you, it's a pretty complicated list of tables, right? But how business think about your business data, right? The major subject line against which we need to query our data is inventory, product forecasting analysis, inventory, return item analysis. I have to do analysis related to sales forecasting. You see, from my technical list of tables, we reclassify them, regroup them in a way that business think about it. Business require to do product analysis, product forecasting analysis, which in turn consists of these tables, or dimension. Then I have inventory analysis, I have return item analysis, sales analysis. The bottom line over here, you have 50-60 tables, but you regroup them, reclassify, rename, reorganize, remodel exactly in the way that business think about it. So when user query, when I query, I understand from a user what kind of analysis I want. Do I need a product analysis? I will pick up the list of dimension or table or fact from here. This is important. This is called business view. Business view also have multiple reason to create business view. We want to hide the complexity. Imagine a scenario which is one of the complex scenario. Today my organization is using Oracle. It's working pretty fine. Because of cost, licensing, or some other reason, my company want to migrate from Oracle to Teradata because of some reason, costing and volume or whatever. But the major hurdle over here, I have got 400 corporate reporting. 400 reports are there, and 400 corporate reporting, it means it is being accessed by your executives, CEO, CFO, and all people. We cannot discard all the reports and recreate them. It is highly unrealistic. So we design our framework manager smartly. Any underlying data source changes, it is capable enough to hide. I don't need to recreate all the table. This is quite a stupidity. We cannot recreate all the table. So my framework manager is smart enough to toggle or switch between from one source to another source with no or minimum changes. This is one of the most complicated scenario. Similarly, we use a data federation. Your data is coming from two different sources, but framework manager display to you as if it is coming from single source. So model the presentation of information from one or more data sources. All the complexity we hide, we don't want my users should know about it. Model is a collection of tables, metadata, that include your physical table information, okay, and all the data sources. It also talk about IBM Cognos software enable performance management. We can design our reporting solution, as I said, on normalized model. Normalized model, like you're designing your reporting directly on CRM solution. Table will be highly normalized. Customer table is stored in 20 tables. Customer data, maybe product stored in 50 tables, like this. Or it may be one denormalized standard model. Denormalized model designed for analytical query. But my system is smart enough to handle both kind of sources. We also talk about security. Naturally, you need to ensure that only authorized user access your reporting system. Okay, it's called object level security. Framework manager allow the lowest level of security called row level security. Each row you can specify who can access this. Row level security, the lowest granularity of your reporting. You also provide a multilingual support. You may, when you design your framework manager, one of your important question you address, is it going to be used by in a different geographical location? So you need to cater currency and language. My framework manager should be smart, should be dynamic as per the different geographical the language could be used. So we use an alias for different product. We have got multilingual support. This is a little early talk about this, but later we'll talk about it. So model, when you design, you understand three important needs. Who is going to access this? Typical reporting or ad hoc analysis, where people can drag and drop blindly do analysis, or advanced analytical reporting. So the one which we follow is to identify the user, what category of user you have, as we discussed yesterday. You have business analyst, you have got view only user, you have user of C band. They have different needs. So the design principle which we follow: first, everything is modeled once, only once. What does that mean? It means you cannot have 4 model, one for HR, one for finance, one for procurement. Framework manager is a universe, one model, and this extend the complexity of it. You can see over here in this, the one which sample ship along with Cognos. They try to stitch together multiple sources. This is very beautiful and elegantly designed. You look at your source. You got 3 kind of business sources. One talk about your sales, another talk about retailer, and another talk about HR. 3 line of business. One contains sales data, one contain retailer data, and one contain your HR data. So 3 different sources. But you group them, remodel, reorganize in a way that it looks to the user as if it is a single source. So when I look at the user view, this is your 3 different sources. But when I look at the report developer view, it looks to me as if it's a single source. We logically reclassify them. Inventory analysis, right, which may come from retailer and combination of sales. Or we have an analysis called product forecasting. In product forecasting, you have data for product table, you may have data from sales, may have data from retailer. So you have multiple sources in one unit. Framework manager has to be a single source for all kind of query. It is not a departmental solution. Maybe in a real world, because of cost, because of implementation timeline, you may design a departmental. We have an option over here called multi-development environment, where multiple developers can work simultaneously. See, I always say complexity is minimized in all context. Complexity is minimized. So when my job as a framework manager or modeler is to simplify the model so that my report developer can easily design report, and my ad hoc analyst, my business manager, they can simply drag and drop and create report. The design has to be optimized for maintainability. So we are not designing something for today. It lasts for 2 months, 3 months. It's an expensive, time consuming solution. Maintainability, business is changing so dynamic. Acquisition, merger happening so often to the big enterprise. New business line is coming up. You have got new cost center, new customer. You may have more dimensionality as your business grow. Your design model may be smart enough to maintain, to accommodate those changes. This is not something we talk on theory. In fact, we take different scenarios where once your model design, it is required to be changes. This is a limitation. This is advantage and disadvantage both. The later generation model. So what it means, you define your boundaries under 4 points. These are under 4 points. My report is designed under 4 points. The scope of my report. If new requirement comes, you add another point and expand the scope of this. The later generation reporting tool like ClickView and Tableau, they do not work on this principle. They have a different model. They say the reporting, we don't define a scope in the beginning. We allow you to expand the scope as they want. But for framework manager, we out to define the scope and say, hey, my report is designed considering the under 4 borders. So we discussed extensively about metadata. I'll give you a formal definition of metadata and how to map with the requirement. Today and tomorrow also talk about concept, and then once you know all the concepts, we implement this requirement into real model design. We design a whole metadata completely from beginning to end. The complete life cycle we follow. So we talk about what is metadata, requirement, what is solution component we have, and why deliver solution using metadata. And we finally talk about one case study. So what is metadata? See, metadata is information on or data in the data warehouse. That is not exactly the way, exactly the data itself, but about the data. Like you have 100 tables, 20 table for HR, 30 for your procurement, 30 for sales. Now you have got so many table, 100 table, some table has got 200, 300 column. It is difficult for you to know about it, which table, which column. You need some information and you don't know which table you refer to, which column contain the required information. So you maintain a catalog where you have information about encyclopedia or catalog of your data. So it could be, if I design my own metadata, if I was asked to design my own metadata, I may be designed like this. If somebody asks me to design, I may be designed like this. I'll take sequence number, I would call business uh, area, then I call physical table, then I call column, then I call the context or business meaning. So for example, every time user refer to business, user want your global HR data, right? Which table is supposed to refer? This should refer EMP employee. All the tables start with EMP, refer to the employee details, or we prefix called HR EMP personal indicative details. Use certain abbreviation. So kind of abbreviation you follow: global HR. If I need a compensation detail, HR compensation. If I want hiring detail, hiring and recruitment, HR hiring. So you see, we define a list of tables. We start with HRs. Every time I need global HR data, I know it to start from HR. And personal information of the customer is stored in multiple places. If I want employee family details or their other information, so I have called EMP, FM, PAR. We use a lot of abbreviation, right? And here this abbreviation we give a business meaning to them. The abbreviation is what is the context? This column should be used every time you need employee personal detail. The context would be when every time you need a personal information, employee personal detail, you supposed to use this column. And we also give a business meaning to this, and in addition to the security class or security group or whatever, this can only be accessed by GHR, global human resource, under this called HR personnel. There's a separate team called HR personnel, right? And it's a business meaning to this column. This column contain employee personal detail, employee parent detail, right? So you imagine what every time how metadata should look like. It should look like this way. Similarly, I have got data for sales. I would associate the SL. So if I get some ad hoc query, design this query, I would immediately go to a metadata and say which subject area is supposed to refer, which table I supposed to refer, which column I supposed to refer. Framework manager maintain this information as well. With each column, each table, each column, we have information about when it was modified, who modified, business detail, other information, description, display name, some basic information we try to maintain over here. Okay. So when you move your mouse cursor, you should be able to know why one should use this column, what is the description behind this, what kind of data I can analyze. So that's your metadata. Tables, catalog, indexes, views, database security, roles and grants. So in the one which I design, I also consider important element called role. This metadata model, or this is physical table or a view, what column, what context, what business and role, who is going to access this. You're laying out your bottom line. I mean, you're laying out your foundation for your company reporting. So security is not something you decide later. Oh, this is a complex model. I don't know fall into that, but they say very clearly you have got multiple sources, you've got multiple reporting requirement. How do you need to map it? What it says, when data comes to you, it's often in terms of operational system. Operational system in transactional system, where you have 20 tables, multiple tables or multiple subject areas, or they may group together. When we convert to information, we should be very specific, subject specific. One subject I design specifically for sales. We convert in terms of information system. One subject we design specifically for HR. So from table transactional view, we convert to subject oriented view. And you see, we have a metadata at every version, every layer. It's not us. But when we work, we focus on our reporting, we focus into this area. There's a metadata for ETL team as well. When they extract the data, they also follow certain metadata. Uh, this so the people who work behind the screen, they are responsible to pull data from multiple sources into common temporary location called staging area. We may have a metadata for staging area. We have a data, we create another model for operational reporting. We may have metadata over here as well, or historical analysis, analytical reporting. But I am concerned about metadata pertaining to reporting, which is this part. So one could be your data source, one could be your application. My reporting can sit on top application. Or then you have a information delivery layer. This is also another, it is also focusing on the metadata at different layer. You have a relation database, you have non-relation database, you have flat file, multiple sources. Okay. All sources are grouped together into a common source definition, and one metadata associated with this, which tell me which source I should refer, depends upon user requirement. So this is a mapping, source data model mapping. So when the user say I need a sales data, which source I should refer? I need a procurement data, which source I am supposed to refer? That's a whole model. We'll come back to this model once again. It become a layer by layers discussion we'll do. So Cognos, in terms of Cognos, as I said, when you design a model, maintainability is one of my important area. So what we do, we design 3 layers. Framework manager, I'll give you one line description now, and then we talk about in detail. Framework manager, we'll talk about, we have 3 layers. One is physical layer, or people call data layer. The context could be anything. Okay. Physical layer, why it is designed? It represents actual data sources. I may have multiple physical layer, multiple, right? But you don't tell your user you have got, if people want product detail, you don't tell him, hey, product detail you access from Oracle, access from MS Access, access from Excel. To the user, it should be one single uniform view. So all the complexity we manage at business layer, people call the semantic layer, whatever. Here you have multiple physical layer based on physical data, like Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, blah blah blah. But business layer, here all the complexities are managed. All the complexity, like filter your data, calculation. So On top of physical layer have a business layer. Then you have a information delivery layer, or people call presentation layer. Presentation layer in turn may consist of uh, called dimension layer. I'll push it to little later. Presentation layer, the name indicates what we do. We use business vocabulary. All the business vocabulary we speak over here and present the information. Presentation layer is subject specific, essentially, isn't it? Subject specific. You see yourself. This is your physical layer or database view. It is not subject specific. Okay, it may or may not be, right? But when you look at the business view, it is essentially a subject specific. I have one subject for product forecasting, return analysis, sales forecasting, and all. This is tables, this is subjects, this is user view, this is database view. On top of database view, you may have a business view where you like to filter record as per your reporting needs and all. So overall purpose over here is to hide the complexity and multiple layer step by step. Maintain easy maintenance. We continue talking about this in tomorrow session as well. I'll give you many context example where designing your model using 3-layer adds a great value to your design. It is not just drag and drop and prepare report. It is a detailed analysis and understanding of your underlying business data and understanding user needs and mapping both. That's called reporting. So I'll stop here and open for your question, and we continue to talk about this in tomorrow's session as well.